Have you ever wondered what lurks in the shadows of a deserted highway at midnight? Picture this. You're driving down a lonely road, the kind where the only company is the hum of your tires and the occasional flicker of your headlights catching something in the dark. That's where our first story begins, with a young couple, Emily and Jake, who thought a spontaneous road trip would be the perfect way to rekindle their spark. Little did they know, the open road was about to lead them straight into a nightmare. Emily, a 28-year-old graphic designer, and Jake, a 29-year-old mechanic, had been together for 5 years. But life in their small Ohio town had started to feel like a cage. So on a whim, they packed a bag, hopped into their beat-up 2010 Honda Civic, and set off for a weekend adventure in the Smoky Mountains. It was June 15th, 2025, and the summer air was thick with promise. They didn't have a plan, just a playlist of 90s rock and a cooler full of snacks. The first few hours were perfect, windows down, singing along to Nirvana, the world feeling wide open. But as night fell, the GPS started acting up, recalculating every few minutes, leading them off the main highway onto a narrow, unmarked road somewhere in rural Tennessee. The trees grew denser, the road bumpier, and the signal on their phones dropped to 0 bars. Jake laughed it off, saying, "This is how horror movies start." But Emily's grip on the passenger door tightened. Around 11 p.m., the car's headlights caught a faded sign. "Welcome to Hollow Creek, population 112. The town looked abandoned, with boarded-up houses and a gas station that hadn't pumped fuel since the 80s. Jake suggested they keep going, but Emily noticed the gas gauge was dangerously low. "We can't risk getting stranded," she said, her voice tight. They pulled into the gas station, hoping to find anyone who could help. The station was dark, the pumps rusted, but a faint light glowed from inside the convenience store. Jake got out, telling Emily to stay in the car. She locked the doors, her heart pounding as she watched him approach the building. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Jake didn't come back. Emily's mind raced. Should she go after him, call for help? But with no signal, her phone was useless. Finally, she grabbed the tire iron from the trunk and crept toward the store. The door creaked open, revealing shelves covered in dust and cobwebs. "Jake?" she whispered, her voice trembling. No answer. Then, from the back, she heard a low, guttural hum, like a chant. Her stomach dropped. She followed the sound, tire iron raised, and found a door marked, "Employees Only." Pushing it open, she stepped into a dimly lit room where Jake stood, frozen, staring at a circle of figures in tattered robes. Their faces were wrong, too pale, too still, with eyes that gleamed like polished glass. One of them turned to Emily and smiled, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "You're just in time," it said, its voice a hiss. Emily screamed, grabbing Jake's arm, but he didn't move, his eyes vacant. The figures closed in, their chant growing louder, vibrating in her chest. She swung the tire iron, connecting with one of their heads, and it crumpled like paper. That snapped Jake out of his trance, and they bolted for the door, the figures shrieking behind them. They made it to the car, tires screeching as they sped away, the figures' screams fading into the night. But as they drove, Emily noticed something in the rearview mirror, a shadow keeping pace with the car, no matter how fast Jake went. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything she could name. If this story's got your heart racing, show you're committed to uncovering the truth behind these chilling tales. Hit that subscribe button. Prove you're not afraid to face the darkness. Or are you okay with letting these stories stay buried? How many of us are brave enough to keep digging? Back to Emily and Jake. They didn't stop driving until dawn, when they finally hit a main road and found a 24-hour diner. Shaken, they told the waitress what happened, but she just laughed, saying, "Hollow Creek. That place burned down in 1995. No one's lived there for decades." Emily's blood ran cold. She checked her phone, now with a signal, and searched for Hollow Creek. The waitress was right. A fire had destroyed the town 30 years ago, killing most of its residents. But the articles mentioned something else. rumors of a cult that worshipped something ancient, something that demanded offerings from travelers. Emily and Jake swore never to speak of that night again, but the shadow in the rearview mirror haunted their dreams. They sold the Honda, moved to a new city, and tried to forget. Yet every time they heard a strange noise at night or saw a flicker in the dark, they wondered if the thing from Hollow Creek was still watching. The open road had promised freedom, but it delivered fear instead. If this tale's hitting you hard, click subscribe. It's free, and there's no excuse not to. Join us in shining a light on these horrors. Now let's talk about what Emily and Jake couldn't shake. They started noticing little things after that night. Scratches on their doors, whispers in empty rooms, and a faint smell of ash that followed them everywhere. Jake, once a skeptic, began researching the cult, digging into old forums and newspaper archives. He found stories of other travelers who'd passed through Hollow Creek and never been the same. One man claimed his wife vanished after stopping there in 2003, leaving only a note that read, "It sees me." Another driver reported seeing figures in robes standing by the road, only to disappear when he got closer. The deeper Jake dug, the more he realized Hollow Creek wasn't just a place. It was a trap, a liminal space where something ancient waited for the lost. Emily, meanwhile, couldn't sleep. She'd wake up gasping, feeling like someone was standing over her bed. One night, she swore she saw the shadow from the rearview mirror in her bedroom corner, its glass-like eyes glinting. She started keeping a journal, writing down every detail of that night, hoping it would make sense. It didn't. The more she wrote, the more she felt like something was reading over her shoulder. They tried therapy, but no counselor could explain the nightmares or the feeling of being watched. By October 2025, they'd split up, unable to bear the constant reminders of that road trip. Jake moved to Chicago, Emily to Seattle, but the shadow followed them both. Friends noticed they'd changed. Jake was jumpy, always looking over his shoulder, while Emily stopped going out after dark. The last anyone heard from them was a cryptic email Jake sent to a friend in December 2025 saying, "It's not over, it never will be." No one knows where they are now. Some say they went back to Hollow Creek, drawn by whatever they'd encountered. Others think they're hiding, trying to outrun something that can't be outrun. The open road is full of stories like theirs, tales of ordinary people who took a wrong turn and found something waiting. So next time you're driving late at night, ask yourself, what's watching from the shadows? What's waiting just beyond your headlights? And remember to subscribe, because if you don't, you're letting these stories stay in the dark. What would you do if your car broke down in the middle of nowhere, and the only help came from someone who didn't seem human? Meet Sarah, a 32-year-old nurse from Denver, who decided to drive cross-country to visit her sister in Atlanta on August 3, 2025. She'd always loved road trips, the freedom, the open sky, the sense of adventure. Her trusty 2018 Toyota Corolla had never let her down, so she packed light, filled the tank, and hit the road with a podcast playlist and a thermos of coffee. Everything was fine until she reached a desolate stretch of Route 66 in New Mexico, where the desert stretched endlessly under a starless sky. Around 2 a.m., her car sputtered, the dashboard lights flickered, and the engine died. Sarah coasted to the shoulder, her heart sinking as she realized she had no cell service. The road was empty, not a single car in sight, just sand and silence. She popped the hood, but she wasn't a mechanic. Nothing looked obviously wrong. After an hour of waiting for another car to pass, she started to panic. That's when she saw headlights in the distance. A rusty pickup truck pulled up and a man stepped out. He was tall, wiry, with a weathered face and eyes that seemed too bright, like they caught the moonlight in a way eyes shouldn't. "Need help, miss?" he asked, his voice gravelly but oddly soothing. Sarah hesitated but nodded. She had no other options. He introduced himself as Amos, a local who knew these roads like his own veins. He tinkered under the hood, muttering to himself, and within minutes the car roared back to life. Sarah was stunned. "How'd you do that?" she asked. Amos just smiled, his teeth glinting. "Old desert trick," he said. He refused payment, saying, "Just keep driving. Don't stop till you're out of the desert." Grateful, Sarah got back in her car, but as she pulled away, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Amos was gone. Not just the truck. The man himself had vanished into the night. She shivered but kept driving, eager to leave the desert behind. About 20 miles later, the car died again. Same problem, sputtering, flickering lights, dead engine. Now she was really scared. No Amos, no headlights, just the vast, empty desert. She locked the doors and waited, her breath shallow. Then she heard it, a faint tapping on the window. Her heart stopped. There, pressed against the glass, was Amos's face, his two bright eyes staring right at her. "Told you not to stop," he whispered, though the window was closed. Sarah screamed, fumbling for the keys, but the car wouldn't start. Amos didn't move, just watched, his smile widening. If this story's chilling you, hit subscribe to show you're not afraid to face the truth behind these terrors. It's free, and there's no excuse to stay in the dark. How many of us will stand up to the unknown? Sarah's hand shook as she tried the ignition again. Nothing. Amos tapped the window once more, then stepped back, motioning for her to get out. She didn't want to, but the air in the car felt heavy, like it was pressing down on her chest. Against her better judgment, she opened the door. Amos was gone again, but now there was a faint glow on the horizon, like a fire. She grabbed her flashlight and started walking toward it, hoping for help. The glow led her to an abandoned diner, its neon sign flickering despite no power lines in sight. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of grease and something metallic. The booths were empty, but the counter was set with plates of food, steaming hot, as if someone had just served it. Sarah called out, but no one answered. Then she saw it, a photo on the wall dated 1955, showing a group of locals. In the center was Amos, looking exactly the same, those two bright eyes staring out from the faded picture. Her knees buckled. She ran back to her car, but now it was surrounded by figures, shadowy, indistinct, but with those same glowing eyes. They didn't speak, just watched as she scrambled inside and locked the doors. The car started this time, and she floored it, not looking back. By sunrise, she reached a gas station with a signal and called a tow truck. The mechanic couldn't explain why her car kept failing. Every test showed it was fine. Sarah never told anyone about Amos or the diner, but she stopped taking road trips. She moved in with her sister, sold the Corolla, and avoided driving at night. Yet sometimes she'd wake up to the sound of tapping on her window, and her heart would race, knowing he was still out there. The desert doesn't forget, and neither does Amos. And remember to subscribe, because if you don't, you're letting these stories stay in the shadows. Ever driven through a town that felt like it was watching you? On July 20th, 2025, Marcus, a 35-year-old truck driver from Texas, was hauling a load of produce from Dallas to Chicago. He'd driven the route 100 times, knew every diner and rest stop by heart. But this time, his boss insisted he take a shortcut through a small town in Missouri called Blackthorn. Marcus didn't think much of it. Shorter route, faster delivery, more time to sleep. He turned off the interstate onto a 2-lane road, the kind that winds through fields and forgotten places. Blackthorn appeared around dusk, a cluster of old houses and a single stoplight blinking red. The streets were empty, no kids playing, no dogs barking, just an eerie quiet. Marcus's GPS told him to turn left at the stoplight, but as he did, his truck's radio crackled, spitting static and a voice that whispered, "Stay out." He turned it off, figuring it was interference, but the hairs on his neck stood up. He kept driving, following the GPS through Blackthorn's narrow streets, but the route kept looping him back to the same stoplight. After the third loop, he cursed and pulled over to check his phone. No signal. The town was dead silent, but now he noticed curtains twitching in the houses, like someone was watching. He got out to stretch his legs, and that's when he saw her. An old woman, in a faded dress, standing in the middle of the road. She didn't move, just stared, her eyes sunken and unblinking. "You lost?" she asked, her voice dry as dust. Marcus explained he was trying to get through town, but she shook her head. "Blackthorn doesn't let go," she said, then turned and shuffled into an alley. He got back in his truck, unnerved, and tried the GPS again. This time it directed him to a dirt road leading out of town. Relieved, he followed it, but the road grew narrower, the trees closing in until branches scraped the truck. Then his headlights caught something. A group of people standing in the road, all staring at him with those same sunken eyes. He slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. They didn't move, just watched, their faces pale and wrong. Marcus threw the truck into reverse, but the engine stalled. The group started walking toward him, slow and deliberate. If this story's gripping you, hit subscribe to prove you're not afraid to uncover the truth. It's free, and you've got no excuse to stay silent. How many of us will face these horrors head-on? Marcus fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking as the figures got closer. The truck roared to life just in time, and he sped back toward Blackthorn, the dirt road spitting gravel. But when he reached the town, it was different. The houses were decayed, roofs caved in, as if decades had passed in minutes. The stoplight was gone, replaced by a gnarled tree that hadn't been there before. He floored it, desperate to escape, but the road looped again, bringing him back to the same decayed town. Now the figures were everywhere, standing in doorways, peering from windows, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Marcus's radio crackled again, the same voice whispering, "You belong here now." He screamed, slamming the accelerator, but the truck wouldn't move. It was like the town itself was holding him. In a panic, he grabbed his flashlight and bolted from the truck, running into the fields. The figures followed, their steps silent but relentless. He ran until his lungs burned, collapsing in a clearing as dawn broke. When he looked up, the figures were gone, and he was back on the interstate, his truck parked nearby like nothing had happened. Marcus drove straight to Chicago, never mentioning Blackthorn to anyone. He quit trucking, took a desk job, and refused to drive at night. But sometimes when he closed his eyes, he saw those sunken eyes staring back. Blackthorn wasn't just a town, it was a prison, and Marcus knew he'd only escaped by chance. And remember to subscribe, because if you don't, you're letting these stories stay in the shadows. What if the road you're driving on doesn't exist? On September 10th, 2025, Lisa, a 27-year-old photographer, was driving from Los Angeles to Las Vegas for a gig. She loved the desert's stark beauty, the way it stretched out like a blank canvas. Her rented Jeep Wrangler was loaded with camera gear, and she was excited to capture the neon lights of the Strip. But somewhere along Interstate 15, her GPS glitched, directing her onto a side road she'd never seen before. The sign read, Route 13, but Lisa was sure no such road existed. Still, she followed it, figuring it was a shortcut. The pavement was cracked, lined with dead Joshua trees that looked like twisted skeletons. Her radio cut out, replaced by a low hum that made her teeth ache. Around midnight, she saw a hitchhiker, a young woman in a white dress standing with her thumb out. Lisa hesitated. Picking up strangers wasn't smart, but the woman looked harmless, maybe 20 years old, with pale skin and dark hair. Lisa pulled over, and the woman got in, saying her name was Clara. "Where you headed?" Lisa asked. Clara smiled faintly. "Just down the road." Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like it came from far away. Lisa drove, but Clara didn't talk much, just stared out the window. The hum in Lisa's head grew louder, and she noticed the gas gauge dropping faster than it should. She tried to make conversation, but Clara's answers were vague, her eyes fixed on the darkness. Then, without warning, Clara said, "Stop here." Lisa looked around. Nothing but desert, no buildings, no lights. "Why?" she asked, but Clara was already opening the door. Before Lisa could stop her, Clara stepped out and vanished into the night. Lisa's heart raced. She floored the gas, wanting to get back to the interstate, but the road seemed to stretch forever. Then she saw it, a figure in the distance, standing in the middle of Route 13. It was Clara, but her dress was torn, her face wrong, like it was melting. Lisa swerved, nearly crashing, and when she looked again, Clara was gone. If this story's got you spooked, hit subscribe to show you're ready to face the truth behind these nightmares. It's free and there's no excuse to back down. How many of us will keep searching for answers? Lisa's hands shook as she drove, the hum now a deafening roar in her ears. The Jeep's headlights flickered, and the road signs changed, now reading Route 13, no end. She checked her phone. No signal, no map, just a blank screen. Panic set in as she realized the stars above were gone, replaced by a void. She kept driving, hours passing, but the road never changed. Then she saw Clara again, standing by the roadside, her face normal now, but her eyes black as oil. Lisa didn't stop this time, but Clara appeared in the passenger seat, her cold hand on Lisa's arm. "You can't leave," Clara whispered. Lisa screamed, yanking the wheel, and the Jeep spun out, kicking up dust. When it stopped, Clara was gone, but the hum was louder, vibrating in Lisa's bones. She got out, desperate for air, and saw the road stretching in both directions, identical, endless. In the distance, more figures appeared, dozens of them, all like Clara, all watching. Lisa ran, her camera gear abandoned, but the figures were always there, just out of reach. By dawn, she stumbled onto Interstate 15, her Jeep parked as if she'd never left. A trucker found her, incoherent, babbling about Route 13. The police searched, but no such road existed. Lisa's photos from that night showed nothing but black frames except one, a blurry image of Clara, smiling, her eyes empty. Lisa never drove again, moved to a city with no deserts, and burned her cameras. But the hum never left her, and sometimes in mirrors she saw Clara's face behind her own. And remember to subscribe, because if you don't, you're letting these stories stay in the shadows. Thanks for seeking the truth with us.